Okay, everybody, it's the Pederson's Farms podcast. We've got a really awesome guest. I'm looking forward for you. If you're not familiar with Brian Sanders, you got to go check him out. Google his name, check out his business, sapien.org, or at least website, and also his business Nose to Tail. We're going to talk about all those things. Hi, everybody out on YouTube. We're definitely filming this so we can get it on all platforms. Brian, thanks for being a guest on this show, this conversation, and I'm sure I missed some things there. So tell everybody in 5 minutes who you are, what you do.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad you came over in person. Yeah, I am all in this health space. All I'm trying to do is get good food out to people, good health information, making the Food Lies film. That's a good place to start. To search for me, just search for Food Lies and I'll be there.
That's a good point. Check him out on Instagram at Food Lies.
Food.lies.
Food.lies, that's right.
That's where I do most of my stuff. Yeah.
We could do a whole 30-minute conversation on just that one thing, and that doesn't encompass all the stuff you're into, but that's a great place to start. So what is this Food Lies all about, and why should everybody go watch it? When's it going to be? I heard some sneaky thing that maybe you're putting out a preview of some sort somewhere.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to put out a preview at KetoCon. We're both going to be at KetoCon July 8th. And we're going to show a little teaser exclusive.
Now, what does it take how would I get to come see that? Can I buy a ticket, or is it kind of exclusively for people in the community that are aware, that you're working with?
Yeah. So we're just going to show it at KetoCon. I'm speaking at KetoCon. So to see it, yes, you'd have to be there. And I love KetoCon. I support it. So yeah, buy a ticket. I don't have any affiliate.
So buy a ticket to KetoCon. Come to your speech, and that's when you're going to show it.
Yep. Yeah, my talk is called Exposing the $1 Trillion Agenda Against Red Meat. And I'm not done with it yet, but I think there's a coordinated effort for about 100 years against red meat.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of money involved, a lot of big interests involved, worldwide organizations, even the WHO. And so, yeah. We're going to show a little teaser of the Food Lies film. And you asked, who I am, my history. It really does kind of revolve around the Food Lies film. So I started 5 years ago. I started making it.
I was going to ask that question. When did you start? So this is 5 years of toil already.
It is. And I started about 3 years before that getting into health. So my personal story really quick is, I started as a mechanical engineer. I had a couple careers. And I was just going about my life. All of a sudden, I'm 30, and I'm just turning into a dad bod. I have all these different conditions, chronic overuse. I have like acid reflux. I have all these little things going on, and I'm just kind of turning into a dad. Even though I'm, played sports my whole life, all this stuff. And at the same time, I lost both of my parents.
Yeah.
So it's crazy because I was too young. I mean, they're a bit older than normal parents, but I mean, I'm 30 and I have no parents. So they kind of just went their whole life with the same thing that happened to me, where they just did what the government told them. We ate the food pyramid style diet. I grew up in Hawaii. We were eating lean chicken, rice, vegetables, pasta, low fat yogurt, 1% milk. We're doing the whole thing. And we were making our own food. We weren't going to McDonald's. Like, that was a big treat to go out once a week if we were lucky. We'd have one meal per week if we were lucky. Everything else was homemade. Everything was low fat. And they just had these chronic health issues that the doctor didn't even tell them, And I look back and like, oh, well, they had pre-diabetes. And, and I was headed that way as well. So luckily I caught it around 30 years old at that time. Made a few changes in my diet. Dropped, 15 pounds of fat, just changed my life, got rid of all my chronic conditions. I don't even take an Advil. I don't take Tums. I don't take anything anymore. I haven't seen a doctor. I haven't been sick in 7 years since this all got going.
I think you nailed a certain thing there, like Tums, upset stomach. What is the thing you can see disappear immediately? I clean my diet up, eat better. You don't need so many of those medicines. I can't say I haven't been sick for 7 years. That's a accomplishment, but it really speaks to metabolic health and eating right and paying attention to your health as medicine.
It is. And sleep is involved, and I do still exercise, and there's other things to it, but the food is the foundation of it all. And I just made some simple changes. I've never tracked calories. I've never tracked macros. I've never done any of that, but it all changed once I sort of understood nutrition. The mainstream understanding of nutrition is so backwards. And if you just, you got to spend a little time learning about it and listening to podcasts and, reading a few books. And
when you say podcast, what is the name of yours?
Peak Human.
Peak Human. So folks, you're obviously a podcast listener, so you should go check out Peak Human. There's lots of good episodes there. I've been listening to them just in preparation for this conversation. I've really enjoyed them. I've learned stuff. I've learned more working this podcast and interviewing people and trying to get educated myself. I'm selfish. In a way, this whole thing is a selfish thing for me because I want to be better. I need this education. I need these relationships. So really, check out Peak Human. It's a great podcast. There's lots of good information and good guests.
Thank you for that. Yeah. 158 episodes. It's been, while I'm doing the film, it's my focus.
Right. What got you into filmmaking? So you said engineer. That doesn't paint filmmaker to me. How'd you get down that path?
Well, now that I look back, I grew up with a camera in my hand. I was back in the day. I'm 38. So, back when I was growing up, there was like the first camcorders that you could really look at on had a screen and that you could. And I remember when I was about 12 with my brother and cousin making videos and we could edit them on the screen. We'd have to rewind it and reshoot it. And we were just doing that since maybe I was 12. Then I actually started making a lot of video projects in 7th and 8th grade with the same guy that's doing the film with me now. So my friend, we were taking the classes, doing the video projects. He went to film school. Now he's a very accomplished filmmaker and has a production company. And he has his own health journey. And so we've teamed back up and now he's making the film with me. So yeah, I had a kind of full circle. Like I always wanted to do film, but then I went into mechanical engineering. Yeah. But then I learned a lot about, I think that helped me figure out how to look at things differently, like, looking at a root cause approach. And
yeah, it's great. It's your journey. It's all those pieces make the whole. And probably you don't get the same whole without all the different pieces. That's kind of what's beautiful about food. It's very important about food. You might think, oh, well, that seems like a good food, but are you considering all the pieces? It's just a thing we consider. We debate heavily in our boardroom at Pederson's. Like, oh yeah, well, that ingredient is a good thing for production. Well, it's not a good thing for the body, or it's a great thing for the body, but it's almost impossible to use in production. So you have, as a company in this space, there's a lot of work inside staying true to your values and ethics, as well as trying to come up with really just get better all the time, lean forward. You're probably experiencing that with nose to tail. I love the idea that you have a burger with all the organ meats in it and spleen. You don't have that in all of those other options. Why spleen?
Well, it's all the organs. Do you need them all? Right? Each organ has different nutrients, different vitamins and minerals. And well, I spent some time with our ancestors and analogs of our ancestors, right? These hunter-gatherers that are still living how they used to live. I went to Africa last year for Food Lies and they eat all the organs, right? They eat the whole animal, nose to tail. And so that just kind of reinforced, my love for, using the whole animal.
I love that. People, Americans even, I think, are jaded. We're spoiled in a way. We've got access to so much. So farming and ranching gets kind of a negative connotation with really in our country, partially in my mind because nobody has the experience with it. Very few people were raised with animals on the farm, on the ranch, like I was. So we have a disconnect in understandings, and then your opinions get developed thanks to those experiences. And if you don't have that experience, you think eating animals is just unethical, mean, and all those things. Well, you go get in those groups of people and they eat them nose to tail. They respect them immensely. It's a part of the circle of life. You respect that animal. They've gave their life to give you nutrition. I mean, without those things, the world doesn't spin, at least in my estimation. What do you think about that statement or those thoughts?
Well, that's so true. I don't think veganism would ever exist if we weren't removed from nature. And I actually just put out a post recently that nature has no business plan, right? Nature is the only thing in the world really that isn't trying to make money. It's just trying to exist and stay in homeostasis. And yes, it has a circle of life and it works. Everything else that humans have created has a business plan. We have business plans. We're trying to do things right and give people good food and make a small amount of money of that because we sell them good food, not processed food. Right. So we're everything has a business plan except for nature. Nature just moves in its beauty, right? In its natural states. And so all of the other things in this world are basically trying to remove you from nature. This is what I was thinking. I don't know if I'm getting too philosophical or too out there, but you think about it, it's like, well, why do vegans exist? It's because they didn't grow up eating animals and being part of the process. And I like this story.
Well, you'll hear an argument. Let's just debate it because I'm listening to this. I think in the business I live in, I have to understand there's a group of people that are here to remove our business. Animal agriculture, they want it gone, abolished, done with, never to come again. So I just own that. Okay, cool. Need to understand that perspective. Maybe that is the best way and I'm totally crazy and I just flat don't understand it. So if you think about that from their perspective, what about some cultures that didn't have meat? You'll hear the argument made, maybe even in Primal Uprising or something I heard in that book. I was listening to it by Keith Norris and his wife. I think her name's Michelle. Anyways, they were talking about there are some cultures that didn't have meat. Am I dreaming that up? Is that something you've thought about?
No, there are no cultures that don't have animal products. There are some cultures who choose to not eat a lot of meat and they'll just use milk and eggs. I mean, I guess India famously, not all of India, but like, I forget if it's the north or south, but they will use milk and eggs, but they will not, actually try to eat the flesh, a lot of them.
Yeah.
But there are no
cultures. You think that's religious or actually? Yeah,
that's religious. That's religious. And this has been studied too. And Weston Price went around the world and studied ancient cultures about 100 years ago. And there were 0 vegan cultures. And there's many other studies too. There was the World Ethnographic Atlas, something you can look up. And they studied 100. Oh man, I'm going to get this number wrong. Somewhere around 150 cultures, maybe up to 180. And there was no plant-based cultures. They all relied on animal foods. And there was only about 2 that were near plant-based, but 73 to 76% of them relied mostly on animal foods. Yeah. So 73 to 76, I forget the number again, mostly on animal foods. So there are no vegan cultures. No, veganism is a new experiment. And it's only because we invented vitamin B12 supplementation and some other supplements. And it's a very new thing that hasn't ever been tested in multi-generations because it's so new. We don't know. And I meet a lot of people through my work and, people know me just doing the film for the past 5 years. I've had events, I travel around. I've met so many ex-vegans that have ruined their health, ruined their life. And they basically tell me all their problems and how bad it's going. Yeah.
Well, it's a dynamic thing. I mean, I try to feel that emotion that comes along with somebody that has a pet. And that's the only experience they have with an animal as a pet. And that can feel really painful to think all animals are pets. All animals should be pets, all those things. And another thing, I want to circle back real quick. You kind of quoted a source there. I think that's so beautiful. Like, I love you as a source. You've spent 5 years, 8 years, if you count the 3 prior to that, in your own journey, in your own exploration of these things. So you're not speaking off the cuff about this stuff. Now, everybody really needs to go validate what I'm telling you, because you can't just take Brian's word for it. I mean, I do, because I've researched him. I trust him. I know what he's done. I know the time he's spent. He's not out just to create conspiracy theories and stuff. He's just reframing the truth you've learned over these times. I'm looking so forward to this film. So this is not a show about hating veganism. It is probably a show about saying our true perspective on it. Right?
Questioning it. Well, yeah, no, I'm trying to question it, really.
Yeah. And so out of curiosity, who would be like, do you have a friend that's a vegan or somebody else that's in the vegan space that you think is a good person to debate and question and have these conversations with?
I don't know any personally. I think I met a few people like playing beach volleyball that seemed okay, but
right.
They've done it just short periods of time, and then they always drop out, and they're like, oh, I feel tired, or the nutrient deficiencies come in. But there's a few more famous ones, and some of them reach out to me online or have little arguments online. And yeah, I'd love to debate them. I actually did at a food conference. I debated, well, it was quote, vegan versus carnivore, even though I'm not carnivore and she wasn't vegan. But we did do a debate on stage.
Well, that's like real debate, isn't it? Somebody has to pick a side. Now, debate it, learn about it, and defend your position, whether it's really yours or not. There's a lot of value in that, I think.
Well, there is. I have had to learn all the vegan arguments over the years. And so, yeah, I do know where they're coming from. So I think what really is going on is it's a lot of surface level arguments that sound good, right? So they have three main arguments. It's the nutritional, the environmental, and the ethical, right? And so on the surface, all three of those sound like they win. You know what I mean? If you just ask like a fifth grader, like, is it bad to kill animals? They're like, yeah, it's bad. You know, is meat bad for you? They're like, oh yeah, I heard it's bad. You know what I mean? Like they just get fed this stuff. And so, and the mainstream media is to blame. You know, there's so many big forces. That's why I'm doing a whole presentation about it. Right. Yeah. But if you just go by what you've heard on the news, what you've just heard, you know, just on social media everywhere, it does seem like veganism is the answer. But then when you get beyond the surface level, you find out that it's not. Right. So it does take some investigation.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I'm lazy at times. I don't want to investigate. I don't want to do that work. Well, look, folks, I think what Brian's saying is he's encouraging us, you, me, anybody listening, to do the research. You know, just invest that time in yourself and your health and your longevity and your happiness. Because really that all ties back very closely to the things you do and the diet and all those different things. Now, you're saying your presentation is kind of focused on red meat. Why red meat specifically? I kind of run alongside red meat with it in the pork category. And then I just think listeners are going to be interested in chicken, all those. So why do you pick red meat?
Well, that's the one that's been demonized the most. Right. So that's the one.
Is that because it's the most popular?
Wow. I haven't thought of why that is. It's actually weird because it's the most beneficial to the environment. It's the most healthy for humans. And sometimes I think that they just have to just go make your head spin and just do the opposite. So many things in this world are the opposite of what's reality and what like different government organizations and big institutions do seems to always go to the opposite of your interest, and they always have their other interests, and a lot of it's just keeping people in line too. I feel like we're just like a big preschool, and you know, these big institutions are just trying to get people in line and make them behave, stuff like that, which makes sense because that's what big governments kind of have to do. Or it's like, well, that's what's always happened since the pharaohs and the you know, like in the ancient Egypt. It's like, all right, well, we got to control the people. Yeah. Anyway, the red meat thing is, well, it has the most saturated fat. It has, well, it doesn't have the most saturated fat. You could have, any meat can have a lot of fat in it, but they just try to blame it on, well, they call it a carcinogen, right? They call it like a class 2 carcinogen with the WHO. I have a whole story about that. I interviewed Dr. David Klurfeld, who was part of that WHO panel in 2015. that decided it was a carcinogen. And he said it was a whole bunch of vegans and vegetarians, and that they ignored all the science that he brought to the table. He's not by any means carnivore anywhere in our world. He's just some random USDA PhD. And he's just a reasonable guy. He thinks we should just be eating a balanced diet.
Right.
And he's like, hey, there's no evidence this red meat is bad. There's evidence to the contrary. And yet they just ignored him. They threw away all his studies, and then they just had this agenda. So that's where it started. That's where this whole red meat is bad for you started in a big way, is that 2015 decision by the WHO, which he even said was basically orchestrated to do that. It was, so you can go back further and say, like there's just, the movement has been against red meat for many years. And I think it seems bad. Like if you're unscientific, if you don't really know things, like it's the first thing I could come up with is why when we thought red meat was bad, because for all of history, we thought it was good. But in the late 1800s, there's a woman, Ellen G. White, that had these visions. She was a religious person and thought the Garden of Eden diet was best, and it was just natural. So there's this perception of just like, oh, it's just natural, and it's just good to eat plants. And it was around the time when men were probably alcoholics. They were beating their wives. That women didn't have as many rights, and she just had this idea, and other people had the idea that red meat just made men violent and angry.
Wow, I've never even thought about going that far back and getting into that mindset.
It's like this primal thing, right? It's just like red meat. It's just like what? Like right now, a lot of women don't like red meat. It's just they're like, oh, I'll take a salad or I'll take chicken. It's like red meat is this manly primal thing that
it infiltrated our culture in that perception. And I think you're doing the great work. Pederson's as a company needs to come alongside that, amplify it when we can. I mean, everything can be kind of debated. Like I watch this guy named Jesse Itzler. He's a great guy. He inspires me. I think he's super successful. He is a vegetarian, vegan maybe. I don't know, but I know he doesn't eat meat. Well, that's Jesse's journey. That's cool with me. I still have learned a lot of stuff from him. So I think there's stuff to be learned from Brian, even no matter what diet you follow. Me too. But we're also trying to say, okay, let's question this. Let's put some information out that's been heavily audited. So you're going along with maybe another perspective against what maybe WHO or somebody that is really more about controlling you than really helping you. I even think it might be the health industry in a way.
Well, yeah. I mean, the sick care industry. Well, just nothing is set up for the individual health. Just people need to realize that we don't need to get too crazy about it. I like to get crazy about it. I like to research and figure out what's going on in the world and how we're kind of just put in our little preschool. Yeah. But it's not. I don't know.
Totally right. And there are a lot of other people like you, like, well, Dr. Sean Baker's going to be on the show we're launching all of these kind of June episodes around kind of KetoCon speakers that you're going to be able to hear at KetoCon. Robin, the founder of KetoCon, is going to be a guest. We talked her into doing a actual discount to the show. So if you're listening to this, go put bacon in the discount code and come listen to Brian's speech for a little cheaper than the next guy. I mean, that's going to be the value you get from listening to these podcasts and coming and just being a part of that community. The whole KetoCon community is valuable and interested. And I love, I just kind of want to explore that idea of this preschool we're in. Like, how do you see that being the truth? I have some ideas, but I'm curious about, yours.
Well, I didn't used to think this, right? Before you look into some things, even health kind of opens the door when you realize that, oh, this food pyramid's kind of upside down, right? Yeah. And then you start learning more about what's going on. The food pyramid is a good example of this preschool we're in. They say, so scientifically, animal foods are superior nutrition-wise. They have more vitamins and minerals that are more bioavailable to us. They have more protein.
Real quick, What is bioavailable?
Well, it's just if our body can use it or not.
Yeah. So
Right?
it's easy for our body to grab and use.
Exactly. So you could say, oh, well, spinach has this much iron in it, right? That's actually not true, though. It's not usable iron to our body. And the spinach has different anti-nutrients like oxalates that can block the absorption of iron. So you're not getting what's on the nutrition label, right? But with meat, you're getting way more, right? Because your body knows how to use that, right? So
all right, let me ask you another question. I'm sorry, I'm
Sure.
jumping you around a lot, but this one's really important, I think. What do you say to this thought? Because it's what I think when I start kind of getting in these conversations. I start thinking, yeah, but I could Google something and find it on the internet that says all of that iron's bioavailable. Right. So how do we reconcile that skepticism thanks to the internet saying, really, the internet supports every position there ever is on anything?
That's true. Yeah, you could find anything. You could find, we're talking about Alex Jones. You could find lizard people that, yep, the internet says lizard people are running the government. That's the problem. The problem is, but you have to go to the source though. So when I'm talking about this nutrition science, this is not debated. Yeah. So, I mean, I actually even found a vegan website warning about all the anti-nutrients in plants, and they warn about oxalates, and they say, don't eat too much spinach. This is what you have to find. You can't just find some random vegan site where they're just spewing nonsense and they have no sources. But you can you have to find either the real source, or what's great is when this vegan site, they are saying points contrary to their opinions in a way, right? So then you can know that it's legit. So
and also almost just kind of close your eyes and think logically. Does this really make sense that these things, that this world has been like this for so long and now it's all just a bad idea?
Yes, exactly. That red meat all of a sudden is bad, even though we've been eating it since the beginning of human history. And I've interviewed tons of archaeologists, paleoanthropologists, all these researchers who do this, and they're all in agreement, and they're not all meat eaters too. They have no dog in the fight. I love it when people have no dog in the fight. I try to be that way, even though I have this idea that meat is good and that processed foods are bad. And I always say those are my two biases. I just don't see it going any other way. Other than that, I'm open to things. If someone says, "Oh, coconut oil is bad for you," I'm like, maybe. Right, yeah, if you tell me it, I'll listen and we can investigate it. Or maybe, I'm open to anything. But my high level view is meat is something we've been eating for all of history, and that it's what humans thrive on, and that processed foods are the problem, and these are the new things that have come in. And other than that, I don't have super strong opinions about diet and all this stuff. I just know that those are these fundamental things, right? So I try to be, unbiased like that. Sure. So I think you can tell when things are either true or false when you read online. If the vegans can even be unbiased, they're like, it's actually not better for your health, but I prefer to do it.
This is my way,
because I don't want to harm an animal. And I've seen vegans like that, and I respect that. Or they say, you know what, plants do have defense mechanisms. They do have anti-nutrients. You do need to watch out. You can't eat spinach and kale shakes every day like I did. I had a little problem. I kept eating them, and almond milk as well. That's an oxalate smoothie. And I just ate oxalates for days and days and years on end. Yeah. And now I don't eat that stuff anymore. And, but it's not that, like I'm saying they're all bad. It's not like I'm saying you can't eat spinach. Right. But if you eat it every single day, that's not natural. That's not how humans existed. So I like when vegan sites will admit that, be like, okay, watch out for oxalates. So we're talking about iron absorption. We're talking about spinach, all this type of stuff. So this is in the literature. This is not debated. Yeah. It's debated if you're on a vegan blog. That's what I'm saying. If you're telling people how to figure this stuff out, you have to go back to the literature, and it's not debated. So we know that meat and dairy and eggs have the highest bioavailable protein and nutrients. This is not debated. No one has ever debated this unless you're just a lunatic vegan on Instagram. Right. Like this is, and then we know that the absorption of iron, say in spinach or all these different plant foods are not as good. We know that there's precursors to vitamins, like vitamin A is like, if you get in a plant, it's not retinol, it's in its precursor form. Man, you just are killing me, man. You know this stuff so well. Like, folks,
if you're watching on YouTube or you're just listening, I'm telling you, Brian is just sitting here in his chair telling me all this stuff because he knows it, right? I mean, it would be kind of like me talking about how you raise cattle. I mean, I just know it. I don't have to reference something or get notes and make sure I'm touching on these things. You just know this stuff because it's just part of your conscious. It's part of what you do. I mean, we're not even going to get to touch on sapien.org, but I think people need to check that out because I don't want to leave this conversation without talking about your, I don't know, I'm going to get the word wrong, gyms or these locations you're putting up. Maybe it's one. Tell me about that a little bit, because I know there's going to be people within driving distance of this who will want to be there.
Absolutely. Yeah. My whole life has just turned into this. That's why I'm so obsessed with it. I read about it all day. There's about 100 books over there that I've read about this stuff. And yeah, I'm a bit obsessed. But I have a whole kind of umbrella thing going on called Sapien. And yeah, we're in Austin here. And we're trying to bring the online community in real person, in real life, right? Like that. I think that's the end goal. Is with humans is, we eat well, we do all these things.
Well, that's why I want to be here with you to have this conversation instead of do it on Zoom. We could have easily done it on Zoom, but I'm going to spend 4 or 5 hours driving to come have this conversation in person. I love where you're going with this, that humans were made to be together in person and talking to each other and feeling each other and catching all of those body language hints that are part of our communication.
It's so true. And people don't do that anymore. And the past 2 years have been really rough on that too. Even I'm still going to meet people in person. I didn't change my life, but some people were, and they made it hard for people. But humans need each other to thrive, and we need to get together. And that's what we're doing with this community center, basically in Austin. It's I don't even know what it's called, Health and Wellness Center. We're making it up, really. It's a new concept. I
love that. Making it up. That's what you got to do as an entrepreneur. Make it up and then make it valuable.
It is. And we're trying to open by KetoCon, actually. If people come, we're going to try to do an event July 7th, the day before, and have a little kickoff to our facility. But yeah, I mean, we're having co-working, we're having events, we're having an outdoor gym, a sauna, cold plunge, barbecue area, fire pit. Like, this is what humans need. Like, that's kind of the last pillar of human health, other than like the food and some sort of movement and getting outside and vitamin D and getting sleep. And then it's just human connection and all that, right? That's like the last thing that humans need. So we're just facilitating that, and we're going to get it out to different cities. I'd love to hear from people what city we should go to next. I mean, obviously, we got a lot of work to do, and we got to start here.
Right.
But we want to have this in different places. So far, we're looking at somewhere in Colorado.
If somebody's interested in coming, once you get it open, where's going to be the place they can learn about it? Is it sapien.org or?
Well, Food Lies. I think,
Lies.
yeah, mainly, sapien.org, you can get on the email list there.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I'm just not good at updating all the different websites and stuff, but
dude, you've got so much. You have, I mean, I'm sorry to call you dude, sir. You have so much going on. It is impossible. Listen, I'm got to guess your team's not 50 people or something.
It's mainly me.
Yeah, it's mainly you. So, like, I would say, y'all check out Food Lies. I'm interested in seeing what you build, right? Like, I want to know, okay, cool. How would I know to go? Where would I go? Where's the location? What's the actual process for going and being a part of this community?
Well, yeah. I mean, not everyone can do it in person. If you're in Austin, it's going to be in East Austin. I'm in East Austin, and we're going to do it. If we get this property, it's East 7th Street, or just jump on Food Lies and find me. And also, I just realized, just to close that loop, I was talking about the different, we got into the weeds about bioavailability and all that stuff. But really what I wanted to say about the health stuff and the government is, we know that we've always known for all of history that the animal foods are nutritious for us, and that, processed foods, that these are these new foods that are causing the problems. And that's just simple. Like, people know that. I was in Africa in the middle of the bush, with these Hadza or Maasai, and they're telling me, I don't trust the food that sits on the shelf, right? They're like, we eat fresh milk and meat.
If it doesn't spoil, I don't trust it.
And they know that. And that's what I was saying before as well. These big systems are trying to remove you from nature. They're trying to just like take you away from these natural instincts. And so my big point with the government, the health organizations and their recommendations are they're saying eat less meat. They're saying don't eat red meat. They're saying cut down on your bacon. Don't eat all that fat. And you need to eat 7 to 11 servings of grains. You need to eat all these processed food products because if they don't have fat in it, then they have to process them and put other stuff in it. So that's just what my main point is. They don't have, it's so obvious they don't have your health interests in mind. This is not even debated science. If you look at the nutrition of even bread, that's does not have nutrition in it. Yeah. Like it is empty calories. And we know animal foods do have nutrition and they're telling you the opposite advice. So that's just how I know it's wrong. That's how I know most stuff is just kind of bogus out there with these big institutions. It's simple. It's science and they got it backwards.
Yeah. Brian, it's been a great conversation. Like, I know we're going to keep talking after turning the record button off, but we try to keep this into a shorter time frame. I'm always have a tendency to go hours on end about these things because it's education for me and it's so interesting. But everybody, if you've listened this far, thank you so much for your time. You'll never get it back. I know it's been valuable to me. It's been a fun journey, just hearing Brian's story, getting to know him, understanding his expertise. So y'all be ready, be watching for Food Lies. Go check out sapien.org. If you're close to Austin, be sure and come join their health and wellness center and be a part of that. If nothing else, for your education, to meet good people. I don't think you're going to find yourself in a dangerous situation or, you're going to obviously bump into some people that might have different viewpoints than you. Hey, that's actually part of being human. It's part of the fun of life too. It's part of how you get better. So just to encourage you, keep listening to the Pederson's Farms podcast. Brian, anything you want to tell everybody before we sign off? I mean, check out Nose to Tail, just any kind of parting shots.
Well, I say eat densely, move intensely. That's my little catchphrase these days. People like to say in the mainstream, just eat less, move more. Yeah. And I think that's stupid because they're like, well, eat less of what? Or, you know what I mean? Like this doesn't help. Everyone knows that and it's not helping anyone. Right. Yeah. So what you need to do is eat nutrient dense foods and you need to move intensely, I think is a more accurate way to exercise, throw some weights around, sprint, climb a rock, do something like that.
Well, and, I mean, you're not like a muscle bodybuilder kind of guy, but moving weights around, lifting heavy stuff, it's valuable. I know it is. It is for me. I put a huge amount of weight on the bar just to lift it up off the rack, and just feel what that's like. And it's almost shocks your nervous system to do that stuff. And I think that's good. Cold plunges, I've really enjoyed. Cold showers. Anyways, folks, we could go on forever. Thank you so much for listening. Brian, thank you for your time. I'm really excited to see all the people at KetoCon. If you're listening, come to KetoCon, use the code BACON, get a little discount on your 3-day ticket, and you come see us. Come see us at the Pederson's booth. There'll be other fun stuff there. At least one of them's going to be bacon.
I love it.
Yep. See you there.